Welcome to Right on Track, a songwriting podcast. Thanks to Tone for tuning in. I'm Demi Michelle Schwartz, and I'm thrilled you're joining me on my songwriting journey. So kick back and relax, don't fall flat, and remember, stay right on track. Hey everyone, welcome back to Right on Track. Joining me on the show today is an artist I'm beyond excited to have a chat with. Please welcome Ashleigh Chevalier. Hi Ashleigh.
Howdy, Demi. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I am having a wonderful day. This is one of my favorite times of year.
Yes, fall is great. We had a very hot summer, and I'm happy that is over.
Where are you located?
I'm in Pittsburgh.
Was it hot up there?
Oh, yeah, it was hot.
Oh gosh, we had some hot days, but living here in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia, we get a lot of good, mild, breezy days. So we have some reprieve.
Yeah, well, that's nice. But we had some very hot days to the point where I like to do work and stuff on the deck, and it was even too hot to sit in the shade. So I was like, I can't go out. So I was sad. But I'm happy it is fall, and I'm happy to have you on the show. So I'm really excited to chat. But before we get into all of the specifics, I would love for you to share a little about yourself and your journey as an artist so far.
So thank you for that. I started singing when I was in kindergarten. My music teacher, Mrs. Gray, heard me, and I sang a solo every year after that. Um, and I played a variety of instruments, violin and cello. I was like first chair cellist in all of the city of Norfolk in fifth grade, which was pretty cool. Then shifted out of that program and started to study opera after that. I had done musical theater through elementary school. And then I got a guitar when I was about 11 or 12, and I did learn a couple of songs written by other people, but I really just started to songwrite then. And I remember the first song I wrote, and then it just went from there. I formed friendships in music and had my first show at the public library, and when I was 18, I actually did write a song with someone, Dorothea Cottrell. She's amazing songwriter. We wrote a song together and performed it at our high school graduation in King George County, which was pretty cool. So that is a synopsis of my beginnings there.
That's awesome. I love that so much. Great experiences as well growing up. And shifting into your style as an artist, you seem to be influenced by many different genres, which gives you a very unique sound. So, can you share a little bit about your musical influences and how those play a role in your sound as an artist?
Thank you for that question. You know, because I sang musical theater and classically for so long, I naturally gravitated into blues and jazz. I would never classify myself as a jazz singer. My mom always had bluegrass radio on when I was growing up. So there were just a lot of roots music around me, and that definitely influenced my writing style. And then as I started to discover my own voice, I tend to resonate with really lyrical melodies. It's not a surprise, soul driven lyrical melodies. So I would go through across a lot of different genres for that, right? From harder rock, even grungy type stuff to classical jazz. And in fact, I'm really getting down right now on Samara Joy's album, Portrait, which is just an amazing album. And yeah, I just I follow the lyrical melody and I follow the words.
So, because you're so drawn to those lyrical melodies, when you sit down to write a song, are you more musically driven or do you start with a concept or lyrics first?
I am very emotionally driven. My songs are pretty much written all at one time. And not to say they don't go through iterations, because they do, but when I sit down and I start to sing a song, the lyrics and the guitar, it all comes out at one time. Now, there's a lot of noodling and creative development that happens in between that doesn't necessarily have a purpose. Just and I do spend nights writing without purpose, if that makes sense. Writing and experiencing music for the purpose of the expression. Um, and then these songs just kind of come together in that way. I would say it's yeah, I would say it's rare I actually like choose the concept. I've done it before, but mostly it's life at the moment.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. So, because you are so drawn to writing those emotional songs and they're very in the moment kinds of experiences for you, what are the biggest things in your life that serve as songwriting inspiration?
I think that's kind of the beauty of songwriting. I don't have a big point of inspiration. Songwriting comes from how I experience and interpret life around me. I could be inspired by a story, a personal experience. I recently took my daughter to see Van Gogh and Monet and felt a really deep connection to the visual, and just kind of got my creative juices flowing. I think if you're tactile and interacting with the world around you, it can be difficult to pinpoint.
Yeah, no, I love that so much. And I completely agree with that because I think being present in our lives is one of the best things we can do as songwriters because inspiration comes from the most unexpected places. And so just being open to experiencing the world and allowing that inspiration to find you wherever is definitely how I go about it. Because sometimes we're not even thinking like, oh, I want to write a song today. It's just you experience something or you witness something that completely triggers an entire song idea and then it pours out of you. And so I completely understand how that inspiration can come from many different places.
Yeah, I have an inner tipping point. So there are times where I have to stop everything I'm doing, pick up my guitar and or the piano and sing. And if I'm in my car, I'll just sing it. And I have to express that thought or concept melodically and lyrically. And it's certainly not perfect, but the concepts are there. Um, and sometimes I just have to go down that creative rabbit hole for a few hours and not be interrupted. I mean, interruption's inevitable, but you know what I mean. I prioritize the creation in that moment.
Yeah. No, I love that so much. So, shifting from the songwriting into performing, you do a lot of performing and you have a band. So, can you share some insight into maybe your favorite things about performing and then also your band dynamics and how you put together a band to perform with you?
So I have been performing again for 32 years, 33 years. Performance is it's a really unique element of the human existence, right? In a way, you can look at performances anytime we go to a job, we have to perform. If we're going to speak in front of people, we have to perform. But when we're talking about creative, artistic performance, the world kind of stops, even if nobody's listening or watching, because there's this new environment or new, like, let's say, bubble around what you're doing for the purpose of releasing and creating energy and emotion and impact in a swirl, right? And in some cases, that is a very explosive, chaotic experience. And in other times, it's a really well rehearsed, beautifully artistically calculated experience, whether someone's watching or not. You add the element of performing in front of people, and you end up having a really deep energy exchange. And without getting too transcendent, I mean, you could say that that's happening regardless of observation, right? But and how you connect. Like, I don't know if you've ever walked through the woods and just sang, but the animals listen, the trees breathe. Like, you notice that you become connected with the environment. When I step out on stage now, I have, whether I'm alone or with the band, I lead the band and I'm leading the song and I'm impacting the room. And it's always been about that energy exchange and connecting with the people and also doing the best that I can in that expression. And there's got to be there for me, there's this personal element of getting the heart of the song out there, and it's never the same. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that does for sure. I think it's really interesting. I think sometimes when people go to live shows, they can think, oh, like someone just goes on stage and sings a song, but there's so much more to it. And I think it's really cool hearing someone who performs so often to kind of peel back the layers a little bit and share that there is a complexity and this kind of beauty and magic to performance that sometimes audience members, obviously, they feel the live music and they feel that connection, but not everyone fully understands how much goes into a live performance, not only from the rehearsing with the band or just rehearsing solo if you're doing an acoustic set to organizing the set list and rehearsing those songs and to just prepping your voice and like all those things. There's so much that goes into performance.
So that's a huge mechanical and logistic side of it. And there are all of those things to consider. I think when you're bringing a truly authentic performance, you're bringing the heart of your rehearsal, right? Especially if you're bringing the heart of the song that you wrote. You're going back to that moment in time where you wrote the song and what inspired that song and who may have inspired that song or the events that inspired that song. Then you're bringing in the process of how you accessed that experience and channeled it into a creative narrative. And then you are putting the polish on the top with the logistics and your technique and your delivery. And then, of course, the existential personal connection.
Yeah. I love how you brought up that heart of the song and kind of channeling your emotion and putting yourself back into the shoes you were in when you wrote the song. And I think the same goes for recording. Every time I record a new song, I always try to just put myself back into the headspace I was in when I wrote that song because that's the only really authentic way to convey the emotion and to share that heart of the song. And so even when you're singing an emotional song that could have some sad roots, it's important to allow yourself to feel those feelings because that's how you're going to deliver a genuine performance.
Yep, agreed. And to your point of putting a band together, I mean, I did it the classic way of I had to go to open mics and connect with other musicians and different levels of players and different songs that we'd work on and different people who were available. And nowadays in the industry, there are a lot of people for hire, side guys, side gals. But you do develop a core group of people that you jive with. I do end up with a little bit of a different sound. And just like when the Chili Peppers had a different guitar player, it affected their entire sound. I've had people really love that about my style and my music because that is a heart. The improvisational part is a heart of some roots music, from bluegrass to blues to jazz, and it's meant to be that way. I don't. I could get into the logistics of consistency and sound in the industry and why that's important. But as far as being a working musician, you love the song, you treat people well, and you both on the stage and off the stage, and you move on from there.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. And I've never performed with a band, so I always think it's really interesting to hear those stories.
Yeah, I have a lot of stories about band performances, and one of the things I really love about touring and performing is all the places that you get to see and the people you get to meet, and the times you get to share with your band. It's a really unique life experience.
Yeah, for sure. So now I want to chat about your album, Cayenne Roses, which is a super cool title, by the way. I love it. So, can you share the inspiration behind this project?
Yeah, so I it's funny because my mom has always said that she's like, Ashley, you're just always so much more inspired with bluegrass and country music. And I grew up listening to bluegrass and country music. I said my mom had bluegrass radio on, and she did, but she also had Loretta Lynn on the alarm clock. Um, in classic country was, I think my first concert was Randy Travis and Sammy Kershaw at the Hampton Coliseum. And Garth Brooks, I was going to marry him when I was 4, that. um, but as I went through classical training and opera, and then shifted into more rock music for a while, and then I found the blues, which is where I was writing music. I would say the blues found me, um, and but I've never really like pigeonholed myself in writing. And what I was listening to at the time really was I was listening to a lot of I wouldn't say it was some of it's modern country. Anyway, I got a dozen roses once and they were yellow and they were tinged with orange and red. You know what kind of roses I'm talking about? They look like sunset roses. Yeah, and they were called Cayenne Roses. And it just the song like flowed out of me over the next day or so. And it had different like iterations over time. But the real thing about that was kind of correlating to a desert rose. And then also, you know, it's not just that roses have thorns, it's that you can be tinged by the fire and still burn bright and beautifully. Um, and cayenne has a spice to it too. So, you have to have a spice to be that strong to survive those stories and to survive life. And that's kind of the metaphor around the title of the album and the metaphor around the title of that particular song.
I love this so much. It's so unique as well. Like right when I saw the title, I was like, that is a unique album. And then once you start diving into the tracks on the album, I think it ties everything together so nicely. So what do you hope listeners take away from this project?
So if you listen to the album, did you get the themes of just resilience and staying strong and beautiful
Mhm.
and spicy? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
So through this song, so I wrote these songs. Each song is tied to some part of my life. It doesn't mean every verse and every line is about me because it isn't. Um, like I wrote the very last track, Nashville Sun. When I went to Nashville, I'd spent the weekend there, recorded a track, and at the end, I stayed in a hotel, ended up staying an extra day, and I stayed in an old hotel outside of the city. And it was the I was able to really reflect on the history of the city because we actually there are two parts of the city. There's the main music row and Broadway, and then further down is an alley where the old blues bars used to be, right? And it's the other side of the train tracks. And so, there's a lot of history of musical history and racial history that come from that era in that area that we don't actually hear a lot about. And those aren't my stories to tell, but I could feel all of the swirl and the pull of the industry in that city. And that's why it opens up with like, I am hungry like this city, because you really do feel like you could get chewed up and spit out in that city. And then, there's a whole lot of elements and themes there. And I felt like it kind of, that whole album ties into like, the album starts with Cayenne Roses, where you're talking about like working really, really hard. And then you go through everything that's happening that could happen in your life through relationships, through abuse, through toxic relationships, uh, being a single parent, being cheated on, lied to, you know, and still maintaining this dream in music and coming to a city and realizing that it's still just digesting, everything that you have. Um, and you still just it circles right back into being a rose and shining beautifully no matter what. So if I was if I was hoping for people to take anything away, it would be a point of connection where no matter what you've been through, someone else has been through some element of it, and it's really easy to feel isolated and alone. Um, but you don't have to be, and you're not, and you can still be a cayenne rose.
Beautiful. That is amazing. Well, congratulations on this project.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. And we are coming down to the end of 2024, which is wild. So, looking ahead to 2025, do you have anything planned?
Yes, I am finally going to release an album I've been working on for almost a decade. There's like 18 tracks on it. Some are recuts, some are songs that have never been released. They've been recorded all over, and it, I I'm really really excited about it. I don't want to say the name of it, but it's I'm excited. It's going to be great.
Wow, 18 tracks. Cayenne Rose has nine, if I remember it right, right?
Yeah,
Nine. Yeah, so it's like double that.
Yeah, it's 18 tracks, and some of those are the single are like different versions of like from my very first album, From the Souls. I have a couple of recuts, some of the singles I've released, and then but I will say it's like 10, 11 new songs too. And then I also have another album coming out in 2026 that is already pretty much written. Um, so I feel the flow of it, and we just keep on keeping on. I can't help it, right? Like music finds us, and we partner with her, and we don't we lose part of ourselves when we let her go.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So, to wrap up, what advice do you have to any songwriters listening?
I said one thing on the last podcast, and I'll that I did and mentioned this before, and I'll say two things. One, I was writing my first album, and Andrew Hollier, who is in a band called Roto Glow and Modern Yesterday, he said to me, "Don't filter any of it." And that was a great foundation. But I would also say, don't limit your expression. Sometimes we want to write songs, or we're trying to write a song to fit a certain model, or we want to get a placement, or we want to do this or that. When you start doing that, you can lose the authenticity. Now, write the song, don't filter it, and don't limit it. And if you want to, go back and reframe it. But I think it's really important for artists to get out of the box first instead of writing in the box.
Perfect. Amazing advice. It was a joy having you on the show. Can you please share with everybody where they can connect with you online and check out your music?
Sure. It's AshleighChevalierMusic.com. And, my name is spelled all the funny ways. You can find me on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, all those places, Bandcamp. We artists definitely don't make any money off those main kind of digital so
Oh,
yeah, I'll have vinyl and some shirts coming out too. So and I really appreciate you taking the time with me today.
yeah, absolutely. It was lovely having you on the show. I enjoyed chatting with you. And listeners, I hope you enjoyed this chat with Ashley. And of course, until next time, stay
Stay
right
right
on
on track.
track.